In a typical American suburb, we see some missing girl posters covering every tree and lamppost. A man named Edgar drives around in his van, munching gummies and suffering from the discomfort of his injured hand. He then takes different items from his trunk, including a bundle of phones and ropes, leaving us to wonder what dark intentions he may have. In the next scene, a woman named Nell awakens in a strange room, confused and with no recollection of how she got there. She glances around and discovers an old clock on the wall that does not tell time, but appears to be tracking something else. Then she notices a speaker as well as a large panel with the number 9 on it, which matches the number on her shirt. Now, Nell proceeds to inspect her surroundings in the hope of finding a way out. She cautiously approaches the locked door, but no matter how hard she pushes and pulls, nothing moves. A few moments later, the clock starts counting down the seconds. Nell notices a red rope nearby, and when she goes to check it, she's relieved to discover a phone beneath it. She immediately tries to call the cops, but the phone is out of service. Then she stretches the rope across the room, taking note of its length and getting shivers at the possible impacts of what her abductors want her to do with it. As Nell walks around the room, she notices a strange footprint that looks like blood. She assumes it must have been left behind by someone who was there before her. Now Nell tries to piece together the mystery of her imprisonment. When she peers up, she notices a glass hatch in the ceiling that shows her the night sky. Sadly, no matter how hard she tries, she's unable to reach the knob and open it. Nell shouts for help in desperation, but the alarm goes off and the room light turns green. With this, she simply sits down again, bracing herself for whatever may happen, but the light quickly returns to normal. Having no other option, Nell takes out her phone for comfort. But it turns out that all contacts have been wiped and the photo gallery contains some pictures. When looking at the photo of the ocean, Nell imagines being there and tells herself that everything's going to be fine. While she searches her phone for more information, Nell stumbles across a photo of a woman named Dawn, who appears to be very close to her. She's overjoyed to see this woman, but Nell is also confused as to why she abandoned her. She then begins to speak with Dawn's picture to calm herself. With a feeling of despair and frustration welling up inside her, Nell throws her slippers at the window in the hopes of breaking it and finding a way out. But her actions are fruitless. Frustrated and angry, Nell hurls her phone at the wall in a fit of rage. However, to her surprise, the phone gets stuck in the number 9 panel and begins to play a song called "Hello, Stranger." She also realizes that the phone has caused the wall to break since it's made of cardboard. She sees a glimpse of hope and begins to tear down the wall further, hoping to find a way out. But her attempts are futile since she finds another wall behind it. All of a sudden, the lights go out and the timer begins ticking down from 15 minutes, sending Nell into a state of panic. Outside, she can hear doors and windows being shut and opened, so she closes her eyes and utters the ocean poem to resist anxiety. A few seconds later, the light returns to normal, and when Nell opens her eyes, she notices that the bolts on the door have gone, and now she can open it. However, her hopes are crushed once again when she finds another wall behind it. But this time, Nell notices a ventilation shaft that she ignores. Moments later, the clock turns to 45 minutes and starts counting down. She then screams and insults whomever is responsible for her abduction. This summons the green light once more, but it returns to normal after a few seconds. However, to her surprise, a male voice from a ventilation shaft repeats the insults. Eager for companionship, Nell approaches the vent and tries to converse with him. When Nell asks who he is and why he kidnapped her, the man's explanations get further odd and confusing, leaving her with even more questions than answers. The man admits his name is Travis and that he's also imprisoned there like her. Despite their initial awkwardness, they eventually get along and Travis couldn't help but find it hilarious that her name sounds like a fish. They soon understand that they have identical characteristics, except for Travis being designated number 6. Travis insists that he has no idea who's kidnapped them, but he keeps asking bizarre things, like if Nell has a chair or if she's comfortable in her cell. However, unknown to them, Edgar is monitoring them both through the security cameras. Later, Nell considers putting her rope climbing skills to the test. Travis warns her that he tried to open the hatch with it and it broke. But Nell decides to give it a go and successfully wraps the rope around the knob using a strong knot. Sadly, it can't support her weight, so the knob snaps and she falls, dislocating her shoulder and suffering from severe headaches. Nell passes out while looking at Dawn's photo on the phone, only to wake up moments later to the sound of Travis shouting her name. Travis advises her to mend her shoulder before the adrenaline wears off. Nell initially refuses to listen to his idea, believing she's in this situation because of him. But as the pain worsens, she thinks he may be correct. She then pushes her shoulder back into position by standing against the edge of the door. As they try to distract themselves from their dreadful situation, Nell plays the song Hello Stranger on her phone, and Travis whistles along because it was one of his favorites. Just then, her ears begin to ring, and Nell sees another vision. A man in front of her is grabbing her wrists, and while she tries to defend herself with a pen from his pocket, she injures his hand. She again snaps back to reality, and Travis asks her whether Nell believes she deserves to be there. He claims that he deserves to be there since he's let others down in his life and that this is his punishment. Nevertheless, Nell believes that disappointing others is a natural part of being human and that no one deserves to suffer in a place like this. Their conversation is cut short when someone appears in Travis's room and begins beating him. Travis then yells at the person to leave him alone, and the lights flash green. Frightened and uncertain about what's happening, Nell suffers an anxiety attack, so she closes her eyes and keeps reciting the ocean poem. After a few moments, the lights return to normal, and Nell thinks Travis has been killed, but she's relieved when she hears his voice again. However, Travis has weakened and become unresponsive, so Nell swears she'll find a way out and begs Travis not to fall asleep. She then starts looking around the room for anything and comes across a wire in the wall that she cannot really use. At the same time, she tries to keep Travis awake and tells him that he's all she has in this place. However, Travis indicates that there are people outside who care about her and wonders whether she's ever lost someone. Travis explains that he's also lost someone he cared about, and the two soon realize that they're grieving the same person, who's Dawn. While casually touching her arm, Nell realizes something's been placed beneath her skin. Travis admits that he has one on his leg as well, which itches in a weird way. With only 15 minutes remaining on the clock, Nell once again tries to come up with a strategy. This time, she decides to remove the screws from the vent using the hatch knob. The plan works, and she gets to open the vent. Travis also starts doing the same while Nell returns to the wire behind the panel. After pulling it through the panel in the wall, she finds the hidden camera, which she then shows to Travis. Now, Nell shatters the wire, preventing Edgar from accessing her room. She tries to enter the vent, but finds it difficult due to the small amount of free space. As she crams herself through the vent, the laser beam triggers a loud alert, and the whole room now becomes yellow. Travis begins to worry, claiming that his captors would torture him again, but Nell calms him down and urges him to open the vent. She then takes care of her shoulder, which is dislocated again. Nell fixes it against the panel this time and notices she's bleeding. Due to the wound, she discovers an odd microchip on her arm and removes it. As the timer ticks down, Travis loses his temper once again, since he can't finish unscrewing the vent. He then utters the same ocean poem that Nell regularly recites to calm himself. With only 1 minute remaining on the clock, Nell tells him to use brute force to open the vent. Travis then pulls hard and manages to open the vent just as the clock hits 0. However, the lights go out and the bolts return to their original positions, cutting Nell's access to Travis. The lights return a few moments later, and a small opening appears on the door, revealing a bright red light on the other side. When Nell runs her hand through it, she discovers a loaded gun. Just then, a gas fills her chamber, and the lights gradually turn green. She starts yelling, and the lights change colors again, allowing her to understand the system. It turns out to be a sound pressure meter, and she needs to reach red to escape. Nell realizes the gun is intended for her to shoot herself in the head, but she's driven to fight back, so she targets and shoots through the window, causing the room to turn a bright, pulsing red. As Edgar observes from a new camera, Nell pushes the rope up through the hole until it becomes firmly trapped somewhere, allowing her to escape. However, her hopes are quickly dashed when she realizes she isn't on a roof, but rather in a different room with screens that show the night sky above her and Travis. She then goes to check on Travis and discovers that he's got the gun as well. Unfortunately, Travis has no idea how to get away, so he makes a terrible decision and shoots himself. Nell is distraught to lose her only friend, but remains determined as she tries to find a way out. As Edgar arrives to check on them, Nell hides against the wall. She passes through his office and gets access to the remainder of the building, which appears to be owned by a tech business. There, she notices a TV broadcasting an advertisement hosted by none other than Travis himself. He discusses a groundbreaking robotics business that's developing androids that are undetectable from humans. It's all too much for Nell to process, and she begins to question if her own world is just a delusion. When she walks further, Nell discovers a huge photograph of Dawn, posing as the director of this robotics company. Meanwhile, a guide appears behind Nell, along with a group of people on a tour, but they all ignore her and continue on their way. Before Nell can even think about what's going on, Edgar shows up behind her. She then raises her gun to protect herself, but he presses a button that causes her to freeze. In the next scene, Nell is sitting near the ocean, which we saw in the pictures previously. Moments later, Edgar appears and tosses a gummy toward her as petty revenge for what she did to his hand. He also programs Nell to remain seated and informs her that she cannot leave until she answers all questions. Edgar then begins questioning Nell about her time in the cell and the feelings she experienced inside. He also wonders if Nell has ever doubted her humanity, which makes her realize that she has no idea who she is. When Nell asks him about Travis, Edgar explains that he was an older model who needed to be eliminated. He reveals that Nell has been inside the cell every day for the past 2 years. It turns out that the company is currently working out faults in her system so they can move forward with Model 10 development. This revelation is too much for Nell to handle, so she begins to ignore the questions and keeps repeating the ocean poem and withdraws into her thoughts. As the movie ends, Nell awakens in a strange room, confused and with no recollection of how she got there.